Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, is with us now. Thanks very much for being on the programme this evening. So what do you make of the budget?
Well, obviously, I welcome some of the tax cuts that have been announced. For example, the cut to national insurance and the changes to child benefits, and particularly the rise in the VAT threshold for small businesses. But overall, I think it lacked something vivid to tell the British people that we're on their side and that work really pays. And so, as a result, I do think it wasn't enough, ultimately.
Lord Frost said that the 2p off national insurance is fiddling while Rome burns.
I was disappointed that we didn't see any changes to income tax. I think a 2p cut off the basic rate of income tax, or an increase to the personal allowance, or a raising to the tax thresholds would have been that offer that would have sent the message to British workers, savers and pensioners that actually work pays. You're not working for the taxman, you're working for your families and yourselves. And there's an incentive to actually work longer or work harder, because our tax regime at the moment operates in a very disincentivizing way. I
mean, you say there you wanted something on income tax, and you did set out yesterday what you wanted to see. 2p off income tax, increasing the personal allowance, raising tax thresholds. You didn't get any of that. I mean, do you think you might have had a bit more clout if you were still around the cabinet table?
Well, listen, I've constantly been urging the Prime Minister to change course and be a bit more vivid and a bit bolder, and in the spirit of delivering what the British people have voted for. We're supposed to be the party of low tax, but we've overseen the highest tax burden in 70 years. And I think now was a real opportunity whereby a cut to income tax would have sent that message. It would have had real benefit. We've got a system where now, if you're on a low income, you're paying a higher tax bracket than you really should have been. If you're a nurse or a teacher, you're paying a 40% tax rate at the moment. That was never intended, and the marginal tax rates are operating in a really punitive way. We should have changed that today.
And part of the reason you did decide to leave was over migration, right? And today, it was interesting to see the OBR upgraded its forecast for net migration, up from 245,000 a year last November to 315,000 now. And yet Jeremy Hunt said repeatedly in his budget that his party doesn't want growth based on high migration, but that's what we've got, isn't it?
Well, first of all, I'd say OBR forecasts on migration have consistently undershot and been wrong, so I would take them with a pinch of salt.
Do you think it'll be higher than they say?
Well, based on recent experience, where our latest figures as of November 2023 came in at 700,000 net migration, and our projections for the ONS are forecast to increase. I do treat that with caution. But overall, it raises another point that large elements of inward migration are made up of low-skilled, low-wage migration. Now, that is actually causing a cost on our fiscal situation. The OBR itself is beginning to acknowledge that. Various independent reports are confirming that. I think, again, there was a missed opportunity today. We should have taken further and more robust steps to actually cut net migration. The British people have voted to lower migration time after time, and we've overseen unprecedented and rising levels of low-wage, low-skilled migration. It's depressing wages and it's damaging the economy.
So if you go into the next election with Rishi Sunak as your Prime Minister, and this is your policy offer on tax, on migration, what do you think is going to happen?
I've been very clear over the last few months about what our prospects look like at the moment, and they don't look good. Every day
that's an understatement, isn't it?
There's a new poll every day confirming my worst fears, that being that Labour is on the brink of assuming power, and that's something that fills me with dread. Labour would ruin the economy, they would raise taxes, they would undo Brexit, and they would open our borders. And I don't want that at all.
I think Labour would, I don't want to get into a big debate about what the Labour policy is, but I think they would probably disagree with quite a lot of what you've said there. But, if you're saying that the polling fills you with dread, then what's your game plan? That's what I'm trying to work out. Are you going to be on the backbenches basically kind of throwing rocks towards Rishi Sunak? Do you think that he should be replaced? What's the idea?
I want this Conservative government to win the next election. I want us to deliver for the British people as they asked us to do in 2019. That's my job. And whether I'm in government, when I was in government, I was urging the Prime Minister then to take a tougher approach on migration, legal or illegal, on crime and policing. Or whether I'm outside government, I will do my duty by my constituents, which is to stand up for proper Conservative values.
So how do you do that? By throwing rocks? By telling Rishi Sunak he should do something when he clearly, with all respect, isn't really listening to you? Or is there a move to replace him as leader? What's going on?
Listen, I'm a politician. I'm elected to speak up for my constituents in an authentic and faithful way. That's what I'm doing.
In the spirit of authenticity, is there a move to get rid of Rishi Sunak before the election? Or is he going to lead you into the election? What is it?
Listen, I fully expect Rishi Sunak to be leading us into the general election.
You submitted a letter of no confidence in him?
What I want is for him to win this election, because ultimately, at the moment, it looks like we're in a dire position. It looks like some very good Tory MPs are going to lose their seats. It looks like the British people are going to end up with Keir Starmer in number 10. That will be a disaster economically, from a security and crime point of view, and for our place on the world stage. So I do not want that to happen. I will continue, as I did in government, and I will continue outside government, to urge the Prime Minister to change course, to cut taxes when he has the chance to do so, and to take a robust approach
have you submitted a letter
in terms
of no confidence
of protecting the British people.
Have you submitted a letter of no confidence?
I have not, no.
OK. I'm just wondering, just listening to what you've been saying, can you really go into the next election as a Conservative candidate? I mean, how are you going to be on the doorstep trying to convince people that the economic policy is the right one when you're being very clear here, in the spirit of authenticity, that you don't think it's the right one? How's that going to work?
Listen, I'm a Conservative through and through, and so I will always be fighting against a Labour administration. That's what I'm here for.
Though, if you weren't an MP, if you weren't in Westminster, Suella Braverman would be voting for reform, wouldn't she?
No, Suella Braverman would be voting for the Conservatives, because we're the party that delivered Brexit, and we're the party that the British people have the best chance of safeguarding Brexit. We are the people who have a plan on stopping the boats, and I hope very much that we succeed in doing that. I think the plan at the moment is not quite the right one and needs to change and improve, but Labour have no plan and would be total failure on that issue. And ultimately, I believe in the spirit of Conservative values. I believe that's where the British mainstream opinion is. They want secure borders, they want low taxation, they want a smaller state, they want a government that stands up for personal responsibility, community, family and enterprise. That's the Conservative vision.
Is it the Conservative vision? I mean, you've had 13 years of the Conservatives and you've got record levels of net migration, the tax burden's about to hit record highs.
Well, as I said, I will keep standing up for what I believe in, whether it's in government or outside. And I'm being honest for the people who have put me in Parliament. That's what they expect and that's what I owe them. And even if it means disagreeing with the government, I will do that. As I said, I welcome some of the changes, but today's budget is not enough.
You obviously want to be Conservative leader. You've run previously. Have you blown it? If you look at the YouGov approval ratings, you're minus 35. I mean, that's worse than the Prime Minister. I don't want to sound harsh, but, without the pulpit of the Home Office, do you think your star's a bit on the wane?
Listen, I'm not running for leader of the Conservative Party. We have a leader in the party, and we have to ensure that this Conservative Party, as it's set up, wins the next election. That's what I'm focused on. So ultimately, personalities are kind of irrelevant. This is about the British people. This is about how much tax they're paying. We've got pensioners whose income tax has gone up over the last few years. As I said, we've got people who are choosing to work fewer hours and to not take the promotion and not work harder or longer because the tax system that we are delivering doesn't serve them. I'm going to keep making those arguments for a low-tax Conservative Party, and ultimately that's what I care about.
You say you're not running to be Conservative leader. You still quite fancy it, don't you?
Oh, listen, I think there's no vacancy at the moment. There's no leadership contest at the moment. I'm focused on supporting the Conservative government as it is. But I'm not going to speculate on what might happen in the future.
You quite fancy in the future? If a ball was to come loose from the back of the scrum, as someone once said?
You're asking me to comment on total hypotheticals. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone in a few months' time. Listen, you're right. I did stand for leader. I put a pitch forward to leave the ECHR, to cut taxes, to stop the woke nonsense which is taking over our public institutions, and to stand up for robust policing. I do believe that is, an authentic vision of what the Conservative Party is. But no, I'm not running for leader anytime soon.
OK, thank you very much indeed. I think that was one of the greatest kind of non-denial denials, but great to have you on the programme, Suella Braverman.